I learned about my 2-year girlfriend's adultery 3 months later, but I was the last to laugh. My ex and I met in college. She was 22 and I 24. I'd never dated anyone before her. We were friends, but I had concluded a year-long horrible relationship. Another girl experienced serious depression. Even though I loved her, she was so sad I couldn't help her. As an empath, I felt her sadness. It ended then. Since we shared an apartment complex, my ex approached first. I had helped her a few times, but our friendship and connection began when she asked a ride. We spent hours together whether she was at home or closing her sandwich store. Due to depression and a year-long breakup, she was taking time from school. She never graduated and relocated to 2 institutions, according to my understanding. We connected because of her story of being tricked by her ex-partner, but I now disbelieve it. We became one. 2 months of friendship with perks led her to introduce me to her parents. I liked her after a few months and didn't desire another relationship. She declined, saying her past engagement had delayed her. I ignored my first warning sign like an idiot. We dated only. I never dated anybody else. A month later, I reiterated our exclusivity since there was no reason not to. She resisted. During our relationship, there were perfect times. She liked everything I liked. We seemed to fit since she shared my goals. However, I occasionally heard criticism. She sometimes compared me to her many ex-partners. We sometimes argued about minor issues. I tried to defuse the situation. But she ignored me. I sometimes chased her out of my flat. That would make her mad and instruct me to give her space. She would then accuse me of not caring if I didn't follow her next time. She also gaslighted me on things I believed I recalled her saying, even though I didn't know what gaslighting was. But I followed it like a fool in love. Whenever I talked about her, my friends would remark, "You could do better," or "She didn't treat me right," but I ignored them. Listen to your friends, they want the best for you. After a year, I still mentioned being boyfriend and girlfriend, but she stayed tough. I was the best guy she'd dated, but she said she wasn't ready. I didn't like her friends, but they knew we were dating. She constantly wanted me to hang out with them. But I hate cliches. My cat allergy and theirs would also be excuses. Over time, we went on dates. She phoned me every night, and we spoke until one of us woke up. In her depression, she said I comforted and put her to sleep. As our troubles lasted, she sometimes became physically hostile. She slapped me hard twice. She did both for laughs, not because we were bickering. I repeatedly told her it was impolite and expected the same in return, as I would never do that to her. In one of our disputes, she stated, "I don't need you. My roommate knows all the guys in the building who would be willing to have casual makeouts." She became a girlfriend-boyfriend after a year of dating. I thought she just told her relatives. It seemed unusual, but I dismissed it since I had succeeded. I'll confess that I wasn't always a good spouse. Sometimes job, school, family, and her were too much. Depression plagues me too. I was angry but didn't injure her. I would mention her hurtful acts. We broke up often. I broke up with her periodically, and she did too. However, one of us always gave in and returned. I manipulated myself and harmed myself to show her how much it hurt. During our relationship, she admitted to self-harm and suicide ideas, which is where I got the idea. My love for her was real. She said she was with me. We discussed marriage, babies, and cohabitation. She moved twice, first to her parents' house an hour north, and then to an apartment across the street. She hosted a party in the apartment across the street. Just myself and her friends helped clean up afterward. She stated this proved I'd be a good spouse. After she moved in with her parents, I saw her almost every week, but I noticed a gap. She was responding to my calls and messages, slower. But she still wanted a speedy answer. She knew I would always support her. Even at 1 in the morning when I worked and went to school. I suggested getting engaged after a few months, but she instantly pretended to be her ex-girlfriend. She justified it with her prior relationship's sorrow. She asked to restart casual dating. I had never done something so dumb. Okay, I said. She would see that I was the appropriate man for her, I thought. In the months that followed, she would tell me about her dates and gloat about how much superior I was. I promised her that if she met someone she liked, I would end our relationship and she could pursue him, but I was too in love with her to date. After talking to friends and family, I realized I was doing this for her even though she wasn't my girlfriend anymore. I told her, and she agreed that any physical relationship would end until we were exclusive again. It didn't. She pressured and guilted me on dates until I caved. She'd get irritated and ask, "Why couldn't you resist? How come I didn't stop her?" She became abusive. The worst thing she ever said was that she would never tell me if she was pregnant, and that only she could decide. That crushed my heart since I've always wanted to be a father and would never abandon my kids, but I just argued with her as we discussed our future. She would say, "It looks like the cutest baby that could have been ours," when she saw a mixed baby. I'm Latino and she was white. When depressed, she called me or said, Would you still marry me? I would say I love you naturally. When visiting my brother in Florida for Christmas, I sensed something was wrong. I tried texting her but got no response. To perform the phone thing, I called her at night. She didn't reply. One day she inquired whether I had a DVD of a movie, which made me suspicious. I asked why, and she said she wanted to watch with her family. After returning from vacation, she visited me as I started the new semester. She arrived to my facility, lost her Fitbit, and called me for help. After helping, we spent some time together, but I thought something was up. She invited me to come to her parents' place in 2 days to talk about something. Then I recognized what was coming. I talked to friends to prepare for the worst. It was late when I visited her folks. She invited me at 10 p.m. We talked for 30 to 60 minutes after she got in my car. She said she was done dating me. Yes, I agreed. I wondered whether it was someone else and said I noticed her getting distant. She denied any extras. She said she didn't believe we should be together anymore. She kept saying other things. She denied ever considering me as a husband, that she never saw our marriage and kids, that she always knew. She added that her children will look like her because I am Latino and she is white. This was another reason she didn't want me. She likes to brag about being progressive and non-racist, so this is funny. Yes. This shocked me. I remembered our plans when she asked if I would marry her, and when she talked about our future children. That hurt the most. I told her I loved her and assumed we were done. We promised not to talk. She banned me on Facebook because she knew I couldn't keep her blocked. Fine, I said. In an emergency, none of us banned each other on phones. Not my family in the state. As I drove away, I felt sad and lighter. My following month was a battle up. Nighttime sadness. I realized she made me codependent. She phoned every night, and I was used to it. I felt lonely. Despite crying on my bedroom floor for hours, I focused on my friends, schooling, and profession. Several months later, she called me early in the morning. I reacted thinking it was an emergency. It wasn't. It was illogical that she butt-called me. Last conversation was a month ago. What were her chances of calling me by mistake? A faint conversation was happening. Her voice and a stranger's were there. Definitely a dude. Though the call ended, I suppose Snow and my name were mentioned. While I shouldn't have, I contacted some acquaintances and found out she was seeing someone else. I contacted her. I asked her if she was okay despite knowing better. Her reply took days. She then said that she had butt-called me because she wanted to communicate. After she claimed she missed my company, we spoke as if nothing had happened. She told me she was dating. When she asked how I heard, I told her through friends, but then I saw the guy. She discussed his flaws. Just listening, yet I had peculiar sensations. She remarked something about his hair being unusual, to which I replied, yeah, it kind of is. However, she had been talking about it for years and wondered how I knew what it looked like. I apologized. I thought you meant this moment. She told me she was getting a lot of weird Facebook friend requests and asked whether they were from me. They weren't. We split soon after, and I felt uneasy about it. Though initially thrilled for her, the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't want to talk to her anymore. The next day I wrote, although I enjoyed our conversations, I don't think we should speak again. She agreed. After that, I blocked her number. A week later, I found a message on campus even though my phone hadn't rang. She asked me whether I was home. She brought goods to drop off. Nothing was worth her going back for, in my opinion. I was annoyed that she came to my front door to leave the products while no one was home. Very annoyed. I told her to quit contacting me. I then emailed her. Although I loved her deeply, she had abused me, lied to me, and other things. I told her to thank her parents for their compassion. They told me I was a good boyfriend, and we got along. I told her I didn't want to talk to her and banning her from my phone. I explained that even though we live an hour away, we may still meet up due to friends and other circumstances. I told her I'll treat you how you treat me if we meet. Treat me like a friend, and I'll treat you like one. If you treat me like an enemy, I will too. If you treat me like way, I'll ignore you. I didn't expect a response from her after emailing. I was wrong. They replied after a few days. From her father. Her Marine-turned-lawyer father. He advised me to leave his daughter alone in his email. Though I was an hour away and engrossed with friends, work, and school, he accused me of following her. He said I created Facebook personas to stalk her. I didn't make any again. It was only through a friend's account that I had seen her account once or twice. Who hasn't? He then reiterated I consider this a threat and abused her like she did me. He threatened to get a restraining order if I didn't leave her. I was shocked. Always had a good relationship with her dad. I read something unbelievable. After consulting with others and researching university legislation, I replied. I told him I don't want your daughter. She restarted the discussion. She secretly visited my house a week ago. Why would she come my house if I stalk her? I told him no judge would issue a restraining order against them since we both knew his claims were untrue. Unless he contacted me, I would hurt him and his children. I wondered, what the F is going on? What stories did she tell others about me? Which tragic story is she telling and why? My friends were shocked when I told them what happened. They just told me to be grateful I avoided a nuclear explosion. As noted, this is a long story about cheating, but I didn't expect it would end there. Thus we parted in January. After the first week of April, a friend messaged me while I was at work to tell me my ex-boyfriend was engaged. It shocked me. Just 3 months ago. It didn't make sense to the girl who had constantly complained about her aggressive, unfaithful ex-fiancé making relationships tough. My friend told me an intriguing comment on her announcement drew her attention. The person congratulated her on becoming engaged and thanked her for arranging their November encounter. In November, when we kept going out. Although we weren't exclusive, I think it was infidelity because I gave her numerous chances to quit the relationship before she lied about seeing someone else. I was mad. Everything came into place afterward. That's why she seemed distant around Christmas. She wants to see movies with him. Even though it hurt, I went on. I still struggled with melancholy and trust. Several people heard about it. Friends and churchgoers. I learned more about her as I talked about it. Those who knew her without knowing our connection said she had issues. They shouldn't have told me what they did, but whatever. I learned from her terrible comments about others that she never cared about me. She only wanted someone to look after her and let her go when someone better came. I realized that her persona, not her personality, pulled me in. Her knowledge of me and my kindness led her to believe I had enough empathy to mislead. I thought I was dating a reflection of myself, but she was a narcissist. This taught me a lot about myself, including that I should be careful who I love and that I care too much and love too intensely. Gained knowledge. At 6 months I hadn't seen her, but I heard she and her husband had returned to my hometown. Yes, I'm not a stalker. She had 2 encounters with my pals, one of whom embarrassed her by making sexual reference to her actions. I received a friend's wedding invitation. Although I missed the ceremony, I attended the reception. After finishing my speech, I decided to mock my friend. You'd never believe his loud, obnoxious laughter. A mutual acquaintance appeared as I finished my speech and was going to sit down, who followed her closely, her hubby and myself. I was surprised by her. Her entry into the room caught our attention. She quickly followed her husband out of sight by forcing him back into the corridor instead of the chamber. I moved to the other side of the structure to collect my thoughts after being surprised. Overall, I was okay, although her startling me was strange. I went to the room a few minutes later and realized that my ex-wife and her husband had never been there. My friend responded yes when I asked whether he invited her. I told him a heads up would have been appreciated, but he said he hadn't considered it. His relationship with one of my best friends was more like a mutual friend. We moved some chairs when the newlyweds were ready for their first dance after a few minutes. My ex discovered I was next to her as she stepped through a door and ran, pulling her spouse behind her. After a few glances, we avoided each other for the rest of the reception, but I felt whole again. For months after the split, I felt devastated, and like a part of me had vanished, but seeing how she responded and how humiliated she looked restored my strength. Never had I felt pure bliss. I won the breakup despite her marriage. She was ashamed to look at me. Such concerns didn't affect me. My conscience was clear. Over 4 years after the breakup, I write this. Despite being alone, I'm happy. F you, Maddie, if you read this. You're a homemaker. I went to college. After all that about saving the world in S, you'll only change soiled diapers and lying and cheating.